The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, on Monday, met with the leaders of the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress, assuring them that he and the organized labor are together in advocating good governance. The APC candidate listed unemployment, lack of credit system to allow workers to own houses, poverty, challenges in the educational sector, and weak industrial base of the economy as some of the issues he will tackle as the president, if elected. While appreciating Tinubu for his presence, the NLC president, Ayuba Waba, presented the Workers' Charter of Demands, which includes a total war on corruption. According to him, corruption has almost destroyed the social and economic fabric of Nigeria across the private and public sectors, and it's the reason the country is not making the desired progress. Joining us on this show this morning to discuss his meeting with the labor leaders is Comrade Isa Aremu, former Vice President, Nigeria Labour Congress, and Director of the Labour Directorate of the Tinubu Shetima Presidential Campaign Council. Welcome to the morning show, Comrade Isa Aremu. In addition to many of the many caps that you wear, you're also, I know, Director General of the Imudu Institute of Labour Studies. Good to have you on the program. Well, you are in charge of the Labour Directorate also of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Could you take us through the labour component of the APC campaign agenda? What is the labour component? I know your candidate tried to articulate aspects of it, but you as the head of the directorate in charge of that, what is that labour component that Asiwaju Tinubu is proposing?
Well, let me say good morning. The two R's, Ruben and Rafael, and my dear sister, Ayo. Quite some time, but it's a pleasure to be here. And through you, let me say good morning to all your viewers, nationwide and even globally. First, I think you've asked the question about the labor component. I think the first component is to even recognize the fact that this is the only political party that has deemed it fit to have a whole directorate to deal with labor issues, based on the recognition of the fact that APC knows that labor issues are very, very critical. Labor is the most important, element of national development. The normal cliche that labor is the most valued factor of production. In fact, the motto of Nigeria Labour Congress reads, "Labor creates wealth." So it's quite remarkable that we have a party that has singled out a whole directorate, to address labor issues. And of course, some of us feel quite privileged, that we're asked to drive this directorate. We have visible labor leaders there. My secretary, I'm the director. The secretary is Ambassador Sholaiji, the immediate Nigerian ambassador to Republic of Togo, and he used to be the pioneer, secretary of SESCAN, the Senior Staff Association, which later transformed to Trade Union Congress that we know today. Of course, we have people like Comrade Najim, the former president of Road Transport Workers Union, and the current deputy president of Nigeria Labour Congress. I can be on and on. We have a 74-person, committee, very elaborate. And our mandate is simple, is to mobilize, engage with labor, organized labor, specifically mentioned civil society, the vulnerable groups, for this historic campaign, ably led by our flag bearer, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, as well as his running mate, Senator Shetima Kashim. And the issues are clear. Labor issues primarily deal with employment, security of jobs, decent work, living wage, this with life after work, pensions, deal with industrial policies. Of course, the key to sustainable jobs is through industrialization. That's extremely very important. Of course, labor issues are also Nigerian issues, namely security, good governance, the issue of democracy, both at the workplace and at the national level, the issue of social dialogue, fundamental issues of rights, freedom of association, freedom to engage, unfettered exercise of human rights, And as you said, Dr. Ruben, I mean, Monday was very, very historic for all of us. It was more or less a nostalgia, because you also know that our candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he has come a long way. In fact, I said so in my opening remark that engagement could have taken place at the Labour House, because he was a frequent visitor to NLC to engage Labour on critical issues of governance. I know on 2 occasions when NLC had to go on strike, 2015, 2010, on the issue of subsidy removal. I mean, Asiwaju had been to NLC, to mediate, to engage in dialogue. So he is not a fashionable, it's not somebody who just, for the moment, passing fad to engage with Labour. It's homecoming for him. It was homecoming. And we had marathon, almost 3 hours of non-stop engagement, in which we discussed the issue of division as contained in the manifesto of APC about the need to reindustrialize Nigeria and create jobs. He accepted that it was time for us to bring back the old textile mills, labor intensive. Interestingly, in spite of the collapse of textile, the few textile factories that are still remaining, they are more in Lagos, which also tells you that Lagos, under his watch, when he was a governor and subsequent governors, still remain the home of industrialization. The need to address the issue of bringing back refineries. The largest refinery project is taking place in Lagos. So if you have an environment that is investment friendly, as it has happened in Lagos under his watch, I think you can imagine what he will do at the national level for him to, when he becomes the president. So it was really a real engagement, and it wasn't a monologue, it was dialogue. He espoused the vision as contained in his manifesto. Of course, organized labor responded eloquently. I want to use this occasion to also congratulate and appreciate the NLC president for having the confidence, in line with our tradition, to present the Charter of Demands of Labor to the presidential candidate. Of course, Comrade Ayuba Waba, did very well, and I can see from your tape. Of course, Comrade Festus Oshifu, the TUC president, also did in large number. The member of the National Administrative Council, National Executive Council, Central Working Committee of the 2 biggest labor centers in Africa, they were there in full time. So we had really qualitative discussions. And for the first time, since this election started, labor issues, occupy the agenda of discussion. And I think that's also brought quality control of the political process. So instead of personalities, now we are discussing issues. And, well, you know very well where I belong. I mean, Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu demonstrated statesmanship, amazingly so. Comradeship, he was humble, he came on time, very punctual, he took podium twice, Then humility. Interestingly, the letters that we wrote to organized labor, he personally signed a letter to call for this engagement, which again demonstrated his humility. He exhumed confidence, that day. It was amazing. It's remarkable mastery of data, of information, capacity to listen and respond to some of the critical questions. And even at a point, when they were, some of the team members that followed him were trying to volunteer to possibly intervene, ask some of the questions. No, he said he would. He also addressed the issue of the fact that to delegate, it's about teamwork. But this time around, he single-handedly answered all the questions, and to the delight of the organized labor who were there. So I think we can only improve on this, and I want to say now that there is a basic understanding on minimum issue that employment is very critical to this election. Security of jobs, which is very interesting. I mean, I think Asiwaju is also operating on a platform of remarkable performance of President Buhari when it comes to security of jobs. In spite of COVID-19 lockdown, in spite of recession 1 and 2, President Buhari has maintained security of public service jobs. I mean, you know very well, Ruben, there was once a period in which downsizing, right-sizing, layoff of workers became a cardinal policy of government in power. In spite of the fact that we didn't have challenges on pandemic, but President Buhari has kept the jobs, and they were paid as and when due. Not only that, when some states couldn't pay salaries, almost about 23 states, he intervened, the president intervened to make sure that the restructure finances of the states, to pay, to help some of the states, which has also guaranteed that. So what I'm trying to say here is that Asiwaju Balamu to really endear the health of organized labor, and it can only get better as we go on. Because this is the first outing that we have done at the national level. We intend to proceed to the states, to all the zonal levels to address specific concern of all the athletes of the Nigeria Labour Congress. And these are bigger labor centers, close to almost about 60, industrial unions are affiliated to the two centers, if not more. So I think in summary, all I want to say here is that we've seen the exhibition of capacity on the part of our candidate. The confidence, he kept on saying so, of all the park, I'm the best. And he showed the example. For instance, he gave an example of when he was a governor in Lagos, when there was minimum wage. First, everybody acknowledged that to that effect, it was Bola Ahmed Tinubu that first of all implemented the new minimum wage in the year 2000. Not only that, he paid the federal rate in spite of the challenges. Federal rate was about 7,500 naira. He paid it. Not only that, he maintained jobs in spite of the fact that federal government they withheld the allocation to Lagos State due to local government issues. So he secured jobs, and he brought some of this. And he said when he not did that, he wanted to apply to the judiciary. But they were told, he was told that judiciary was on the exclusive list. But he went ahead to see improve allowances of the judicial workers, including judges. So I think what I want to say is that Monday 19th was extremely very historic.
Comrade Issa, thank you very much for detailing the success of the engagement with the organized labor with your principal and presidential candidates of the APC. I'd like you to speak to some of the concerns that perhaps any presidential candidate should be looking at, particularly with regards to the organized labor. We talk about unemployment rate in Nigeria at the last statistics released by the NBS was at its highest, with Nigerians saying to be 33% of Nigerians unemployed. We talk about underemployment. We talk about the minimum wage. Recently, the World Bank said that considering inflation realities, the minimum wage is currently about 19,000 naira. And we understand the price of food, cost of living in Nigeria, it's not commensurate. What are some of the solutions and interventions that your office would recommend to your presidential candidate and which he would implement if he does become president to ensure that the lot of Nigerian workers would be better?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ayo. I think the issues are clear. First, I'm happy you recognize the fact that it's not just for the APC alone, for all the parties. I think we must mainstream the issue of job creation. That's the key. I mean, it's a scandal today that our children, or grandchildren, depending on who you are, they afford the certificate. BA, MSc, MA, PhD, but they lack the real certificate, JOB, jobs. And you can see, I mean, look at the number, as you said, 35% unemployment, but unofficially, it's far more than that. You can say out of 10 able-bodied willing to work, about 6 are not working. Not only that, I'm happy you put it very well, gross underemployment. Those who are working, who pretend to be working. Some of them have become working poor because of low pay. I mean, these are critical labor issues, and I want the media to task all parties on these issues. Not about how eloquent to speak, how do you get it done? Again, we have said so, and it's in line with the manifesto of Asiwaju Ahmed, that first you must name it to tame it. If you don't name it, you can't tame it. He has named it that employment creation is cardinal to his campaign. Not to just employment, decent work. That's what ILO, International Labour Organization, talks about. Because you can actually have jobs that promotes race to poverty, because it's poorly paid. Workers are not motivated, they have no tools, they are casual workers, they are not secure. They are done by workers who have no voice, who have no union. So decent work is one. Now Asiwaju has named it. In his own, and he also link it to the issue of industrialization. Sustainable jobs can come mass through bringing back industries in the private sector. But in terms of philosophy, he also says so. I mean, that is quite a quotable quote. I hope I can get him to get it quoted. He said, where private sector does very well, we will keep them, we will leave them to do their jobs. But wherever there is market failure, government will intervene. This complete departure from the doctrinal, dogmatic position of some parties who are talking of wholesale privatization. I just listened to the Minister of Works, Fashola. Privatization, those are not the buzzword of government. Yes, we can make the market work, but the state is the engine of development. Is the one that we have development plan, is the one that we provide electricity, enabling. Markets can fail. Markets have failed. We've seen it under COVID, in which, for whatever reason, supply chains were collapsed. Industry have to bail out, by the state. So it's already made the point that state will definitely have business in business, of job creations. Then there must also be direct intervention. Even though private sector can create jobs, if they don't do that, but there are some public works that must be carried out. Again, I can refer to very good intervention that President Buhari did. Close to 774,000 jobs were created for about 4 months. Given the limited resources, in which each local government, 774 were asked to create 1,000 jobs. For the youth. Of course, we can make that one to be sustainable, so that some of them could acquire skill, over time to work. So jobs is the key. Then the issue of living wage. And I think Asiwaju also raised the point of the need to pay workers very well. The basic problem we're having, series of strikes in this country today, and I can tell you that I'm the DG of Michael Imodu Labour Institute, we also keep record, is that there is crisis of compensation in this country. Workers are poorly paid. Some of them are not paid on time. Not only that, there's inequality in payment, inequities. Some public agencies like DRPC and co, a driver hands more than what a director will hand in the core civil service. In fact, 3 times more, a driver, hands more. So you need to address that. And he made the point, he will improve on wages through dialogue, engagement with labor. He also linked it to even fighting corruption. First, he made it clear, as well as made the point that he will maintain zero tolerance against corruption. But he went further. What are the driving forces against corruption? Is adequate remuneration, adequate enhancement for public servants. And I think some of these Lagos has done very well. I know Lagos State, as I'm talking to you, pays more than that minimum wage. There are also a lot of allowances that have been put in place in some states, including Lagos, to get it done. Now, you can imagine if we have this mindset and attitude at national level, of course, that would be very, very important to actualize development. So you can't demand for productivity without engaging labor. And I think he made the last point. Rufai, let me make this point. He repeated it 3 times. He said, there will no more strikes when I get to office. I will engage, I will dialogue, I will address the concern. He repeated it 3 times. That was audacious. And that touched the heart of the working men and women who are at this historic town hall engagement.
Okay, real quickly, I mean, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done a lot, as regards, workers' rights, like you stated, and kudos to him on that. But I'd like to ask you two questions, and let's set history straight. You said he started paying minimum wage of $7,500, but one part you didn't tell about the story was the struggle of a certain man called Ayodele Akile that had to fight so hard, and Bola Ahmed Tinubu sacked him. So when you say he respects workers' rights, why was Ayodele Akile sacked? And you remember how Ganifa were made to intervene, and due compensation was never made. Ayodele Akile died a pauper. At some point he went into politics, tried to run for NCP, National Conscience Party. But you remember the story of Ayodele Akile, and you didn't put it in this, your narrative. So let us set that to balance history. What's your take on that? And secondly, I'll read something to you. As at the strike that led to the 1981 minimum wage setting, Shehu Shagari's government set the minimum wage as in 1981 for 125 naira, which is $125 US. But today, that same minimum wage, because of forex erosion, is now $41. I ask you, how will your candidate last least ensure that the minimum wage goes from $41 as it is to the $125 that Shehu Shagari left it in 1981? Because from $125, which is 125 naira in 1981 that Shehu Shagari left it, today minimum wage is $41. So that means an average Nigerian worker has lost over $82 in economic power and minimum wage. Those are the two questions I have for you, sir.
Thank you very much, Rufai. I wanted to say I admire your tie. It seems you are prepared for blue line rail already. Yes, I wanted to say that during my opening remark. Apparently, you can't wait to join the blue rail line, which again is credit to Lagos. And I'm happy Ruben pointed out that this is part of the fallout of the foundation laid by Asiwaju Ahmed to continue the vision of Jakande as far back as 1981. Let me congratulate Lagos State. Me too, I can't wait to be in Lagos for somebody who has been in Lagos for a long time, joining Mulu. It would be nice to be in a modern train, as I used to now join between Kaduna to Abuja. Now, on the issue of the minimum wage, I'm happy, Rufai, your sense of memory, very, very significant. But let me tell you the details of that engagement. I was involved, and it was Comrade Adams Oshomole, who was the president of Nigeria Labour Congress. One of the greatest achievements of Comrade Adams Oshomole was to immediately, all the draconian military laws or decrees were repealed, and then we returned back to democracy. And later on, NLC had his Congress, he became president. One thing he took off was to pursue aggressively the need for improvement in pay. And then we engaged President Obasanjo at that time to say that the ruling minimum wage, as you said, officially that time was just about 125 naira, because from 1981, a little bit of improvement in 1992, but it was quite very low. And then we engaged the federal government. After almost 6 months of negotiation, we settled for 7,500 for federal minimum wage. National minimum wage was actually 5,500. That's the one in the Minimum Wage Act of year 2000, which President Obasanjo, considered to after engagement. But after we finished, Comrade Adams, decided to say, wait, because even President Obasanjo wanted to pay the national minimum wage of 5,500. Comrade Adams said, no, federal can't pay the same rate, because you are the biggest employer, you have access to more resources. So after a negotiation, we made it 7,500. Then he went further to say that there are some states that as rich as, who are capable, who have the ability to pay, such as Rivers, Delta, of course, Lagos State, Bayelsa, and it was a strong one. We later got a deal to say some of these states will pay 7,500. There are some in between, 6,500, like Kaduna. It's very interesting, that engagement. But it took place under a democracy through dialogue. Now we engage Lagos State, of course. Lagos also resisted at a point, legitimately so, because Lagos said, well, our revenues are being withheld. It's going to be difficult for us to get it paid. We actually engaged Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu as a governor there. Now, the issue of engagement, that's the point I was raising, that is tested already. It's trusted because he's familiar with labor method. And we demonstrated, that time Akele, my very good friend, may so rest in peace, was the state chairman, I think one of the joint action committee of the NLC that time, very committed and cool. And we had series of demonstrations until we later got concession from Asiwaju to say he himself will pay beyond national, beyond the prevailing legally permitted minimum wage. Of course, there were a lot of issues that also came up on that one because after we got the settlement done, rather than dealing with the agreement that was put in place, there are a lot of internal issues that became a little bit more complicated, for the State Council of the NSC. But again, those are not the details we want to work out. But the point I want to tell you here is that, we are part of that struggle. We engage Asiwaju, and Asiwaju remarkably accepted through negotiation. He was also a strong man. I mean, that's the beauty of any government, any employer you engage. And in the process, we later got that agreement done. So what I want to tell you here is that the narrative is straightforward. Now, the second one, Rufai, dealing with minimum wage, the prevailing rate, I absolutely agree with you that the current minimum wage has been eroded by devaluation and co. But the way to get to it is also align monetary and fiscal policies. We need macroeconomic stability, very well. I mean, you can imagine 121 naira, was twice, was only $250 because we have macroeconomic stabilities at that time.
Well, on that
you can
note,
imagine if we're having minimum wage with strong naira now. So all we need to do is to align this struggle together with macroeconomic policy, which Bola Ahmed Tinubu program is very clear over. That they will align the policy in a way that we produce more, naira becomes stronger, and then as we improve on wages, there will be value for money for men and women. So it's a pleasure to really.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Comrade. Although I would have loved to ask you an additional question, that you said APC is the first party to engage with Labour. And how about Labour Party? Where is the Labour Party? Does the Labour Party have a Labour Directorate too? But we thank you very much for joining us.